Hi everyone, MP Will Greaves here with this week's weekly wrap on a beautiful February day in downtown Victoria. It was a busy and substantive week in Ottawa and here at home, with major progress at committee and important conversations on trade, culture, and immigration, as well as time spent with communities who are carrying real grief and urgency right now. Let's get into it. At the Transport Committee, we finally wrapped up our testimony on the long-running study of Driver Inc. And I'll be honest, it's relief to be at this stage. What we've heard clearly is that Driver Inc. makes our roads and highways less safe, undermines workers, and cheats governments at all levels out of significant revenue. I also met with the BC Trucking Association, who were very direct. They told us that implementing Budget 2025 is critical to improving safety, transparency, and fairness in the trucking sector nationwide. That message came through loud and clear and will be reflected in our committee's final report. This week, I also attended the Prime Minister's Economic Growth Caucus, where we heard from the CEOs of Canada's 5 largest ports. Our ports are essential to economic growth and trade diversification, and they'll be the next major topic the Transport Committee takes up. This work matters for jobs, supply chains, and Canada's resilience in a changing global economy, and is obviously highly relevant to us living in coastal communities like on the South Island. On immigration and education, I met with Palestinian students and scholars at risk to discuss pathways for graduate students who've already been admitted to study in Canada, but are facing barriers to actually getting their visitor visas. Canada has an opportunity and a responsibility to support students whose education has been disrupted by conflict in their home countries. I also met with representatives from Canada's National Ballet School. We know that arts and culture institutions are critical to our quality of life, but are also central to the visitor economy. And so it's important that Parliament and the government continue to recognize and support that contribution by supporting our arts and cultural institutions. In the House of Commons, I debated this week with opposition MPs on climate and environmental policy. I pushed back pretty firmly against the misinformation and revisionist history.
It is a little bit like living through a Twilight Zone episode to hear the opposition talk about carbon pricing in this country. Being from British Columbia, we know that the first consumer price on carbon in North America was introduced in British Columbia in 2007 by a right-of-center government that some of the members of the opposition benches supported at the time. There is no historical memory opposite about the reality of climate change and climate policy in this country, and there is nary an honest word that the opposition has to share on this topic. For a new member of this House such as myself, it is deeply disillusioning. I wonder whether the honourable colleague from Kingston and the Islands would elaborate on the government's approach to combating climate change.
Because Canadians deserve honest debate grounded in facts, especially on issues that are as consequential for all of us as climate change. And this week also included a powerful and joyful moment. I attended a gala for Black History Month with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mrs. Carney, with members of my party's Black Caucus, and with the Honourable Jean Augustine, the first Black woman elected to Canada's Parliament. It was a reminder of how much leadership, resilience, and excellence Black Canadians bring to public life on this, the 30th anniversary of our official Black History Month. I also sat this week on Finance Committee, where we questioned the Minister of Veterans Affairs about how the budget will support veterans and how defence investments here on Vancouver Island will help support local jobs and our economy. And that is really important to me, that how we spend that defence money supports our local communities. This week, we also welcomed Minister Marc Miller to Victoria for a visit to the Royal BC Museum, where we highlighted the importance of culture, history, and public institutions in our region, while also highlighting the rich tradition of Indigenous languages in this part of Canada. Finally, I attended a meeting with the Iranian-Canadian community to celebrate the lives of the thousands of Iranians, many of them young people, who've been killed in recent weeks by the regime. It was a solemn event where we sat in remembrance and solidarity, remembering the dignity of the freedom struggle that so many people are still facing around the world, and thinking in particular of the loved ones of so many Iranians right here in Canada, feeling a lot of grief for their community at this difficult time. So it's been a busy and full week, but that's the weekly wrap. Thanks for staying tuned, thanks for staying engaged, and I'll see you again next week.